Welcome to the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of the week. This video offers a collection of love drama, moral dilemmas, and cheating stories. Ready to judge? Let's dive in together. The first story of the collection is from Boring-Committee-959. AITA for wanting to give up my son after discovering he isn't mine? I, 32M, am shattered and don't know where to turn. My wife passed away last month, only 7 months after giving birth to our son. She developed peripartum cardiomyopathy, a rare and severe form of heart failure that can occur in the months following childbirth. Despite the doctor's best efforts, she didn't survive. Losing her so suddenly has left me heartbroken and in a state of constant grief. 3 weeks ago, my wife's best friend came over to visit. She was visibly nervous and eventually told me she had something sensitive to share. After some hesitation, she revealed that my wife had confided in her that she'd been unfaithful around the time our son was conceived and that there was a chance he might not be mine. I was stunned and angry. My wife's best friend was telling me this only a week after my wife's death, and it felt like an attempt to tarnish her memory. I couldn't believe it. I told her to leave and not to come back, convinced she was lying or trying to shift blame onto me somehow. The whole thing felt like a betrayal, and I tried to push the thought out of my mind. But once the idea was planted, it wouldn't go away. I kept wondering, what if she was telling the truth? After days of tormenting myself with this possibility, I decided to get a DNA test. It wasn't an easy decision. I felt guilty for even considering it, but I needed closure. Yesterday, the results came back. My worst fears were confirmed. My son isn't biologically mine. Now, I'm in turmoil. I loved my wife, and I wanted to believe our son was a piece of her and me together. But knowing he's not biologically mine has left me feeling lost and betrayed. I keep looking at him, trying to feel the same bond, but the pain of my wife's infidelity is so fresh, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to move past it. I feel awful even considering it, but I don't know if I can raise him on my own. The betrayal I feel is overwhelming, and I don't know if I'm capable of giving him the love and care he deserves. It's breaking my heart and I feel like a failure, but I also feel like I'm not equipped to give him the life he deserves. AITA? Edit. I hadn't thought of contacting the friend, but I will now. The replies have really solidified what I have been feeling. The child is innocent, but I don't think I'd be able to love or care for him as well as I should. Informing the family will be my first step, then contacting the AP, if possible. Adoption is going to be my last resort. Many of you may believe I'm a monster, but put yourself in my situation. I hope you all understand. Edit 2. So, I called her friend. I apologized for my behavior, but also asked why she did not inform me as soon as she knew. She said her loyalties laid with her friend more than me. Okay, fine. I asked her about the AP. She said she doesn't know as it was a one-time thing. Apparently, it happened during her work time, whatever that meant, and during daytime as she'd been told. I mean, I'm not fully understanding, but it seems like she f***ed a guy when she was supposed to be working. Many of you are suggesting I go through her phone or other social contacts, but I don't know any passwords. I never doubted her. We weren't controlling of each other, and had and gave plenty of privacy. The next step is informing the family, both mine and hers. I'm adding another thing. I don't hate the baby, and I'm not so deranged I'd throw him out of the house. Whatever happens according to procedure. I'm not going to instantly abandon a kid just because he isn't mine. OP is not an AH for being shocked and grieving. It is natural because of his wife's infidelity. Despite all this, he is not outrightly abandoning the child. Instead, he is weighing all options. OP isn't the AH. He's grieving his wife's death and dealing with the shock of her infidelity, which has left him feeling betrayed and lost. Though he's considering all options, including adoption, he's doing so with the child's well-being in mind, acknowledging his emotional limitations rather than abandoning responsibility impulsively. His reaction is understandable, under immense stress. Nix, 4964. AITA. For letting my sister have her way and be right? My sister Lucy, 39. Me, Victoria, 30. And my brother Jay, 37. Our brother Jay had a stroke and now has severe brain damage. He can't walk, talk, or do anything on his own. His time in the hospital was extremely tumultuous and stressful. My family members don't work well in crisis. It's very disappointing because, instead of pulling together, they are more interested in controlling the situation or being right at all costs. My sister Lucy is the worst of them all, extremely volatile, and would sacrifice anything for the sake of being right. At all costs, whatever it takes. She doesn't care who she hurts or over. She has tried to ruin my life reputation multiple times, even attempting to get me fired simply because she couldn't control me or make submit to her. And when that didn't work, She simply tried to control how others perceived me by spreading rumors. She has BPD, but refuses to get medicated or admit she's even been diagnosed. Most of the family avoids her at all costs. Since she's not mentally balanced, I handled essentially all of the decisions for our brother's medical care within the first 2 months. I found him the best stroke doctors, neurologists, surgeons, etc. So we could figure out what his chances of having a good quality of life were. Me and my family agreed that if it wasn't likely he would ever walk or talk again, that we would opt for hospice. This is a key point, since we can't ever agree on anything. Once I finally managed to get both the stroke doctor and neurologist to sit down with us and go over his scans, they essentially said his quality of life would be terrible. Not worth living for, basically. I specifically requested that they were frank and candid in their wording because my family members tend to be highly delusional and twist things when they don't want to accept the truth. My father and I agreed to start looking at hospice facilities. My sister freaked out and fought us viciously. It's worth noting that people with BPD are highly manipulative. Naturally, my father was hesitant to let my brother go. Jay was always his favorite. So, it goes without saying that Lucy successfully manipulated him into believing that letting our brother live would be best for him, and that he could learn to walk and talk again one day, despite the doctors saying otherwise. I begged them to allow me to get second opinions from different doctors before making this decision. I begged them to see reason, to think of our brother, who above all values his autonomy more than anything, and would absolutely resent being a prisoner in his own body for the rest of his life. I begged them to think of who will care for him. How would we afford it? They didn't want to hear it, and they didn't want to think ahead. All they saw was me, the obstacle, and since I was opposing them, they turned on me and cut me out of the decision-making, even telling doctors and nurses to no longer speak to me or give me updates. I was also fired during this time. Unbeknownst to me, my boss told me to take all the time I needed, and when I tried to come back after 2 weeks off, I was never put back on the schedule. I also needed to pack up my house and move, so since I had 2 weeks to find a new place and pack up my house, I decided to step back and focus on that. My sister proceeded to make the hospital staff's lives a living nightmare, telling everyone how to do their jobs, reporting them to their supervisors for every little thing, etc. She decides at this point that he's better off at home with her because she believes she will be a better caretaker. So she secured state housing and brought him home. I made it clear I couldn't help her care for him when she made this decision. She insisted that she didn't need our help since we wanted to let our brother die, kill him asterisk anyway, so she didn't trust us to help. Well, now, after stabbing me in my back, f***ing me over and talking shit about me for over a year, she's suddenly begging me to help. She hasn't even had him home for 3 months. She's attempting to guilt, manipulate, and even gaslight me into believing this was my idea. Therefore, I have to take some responsibility and help. Everything I warned her about the realities of caretaking has come true, and she is deeply depressed, angry, and feels I owe it to her to do more. But I don't feel this way. I was never close with my brother. If anything, it was quite the opposite, and she knows this. My sister clawed her way through everyone, limiting her options because she thought she knew best. So now I'm letting her lay in the bed she made for herself. Honestly, I don't even feel a little bad. She's an insufferable I'm sure you're wondering why I wouldn't want to help more. You see, Jay molested me when I was a child. So, stepping up to fight for his life in the hospital day in and day out, while also arguing with my family, coordinating with doctors, nurses, surgeons, etc., was extremely hard and exhausting for me given our history. But I did it anyway, because he didn't have a voice. My sisters know this but doesn't give a shit and thinks I'm being dramatic about it. She had told me to get over it multiple times, and maybe I could if I had ever gotten justice. TLDR, my psycho sister manipulated my father out of putting our brother in hospice after he suffered a stroke, leading to permanent brain damage that put him in a coma for nearly 6 months. Even though hospice was the decision we agreed on as a family, once doctors informed us, he would likely never walk, talk, or eat on his own again. He was in a coma for nearly 6 months before waking up. She turned my father against me, and they made this decision for my brother against his wishes. She constantly accosted the hospital staff and questioned their ability to care for him, ultimately deciding to bring him home to care for. I warned her about the realities of caretaking, but she refused to listen. Reality set in after he was home for a month, and she's been trying to manipulate and gaslight me into helping by claiming that the choice to keep him alive was my decision. Even though they cut me out of the decision-making for his healthcare over a year ago, they shunned me viciously and were spreading rumors among our family. I'm used to the mistreatment I receive from my family. They're very toxic, manipulative, and controlling. They constantly try to minimize their toxic behavior and fully expect me to get over it. It strained our relationship greatly because I was already NC with them long before my brother's accident and have since resumed NC. It's not possible to coexist with people with such little self-awareness. I can't and won't help care for him. I have a job and a full life dealing with my own autoimmune disease. I was also molested by my brother as a child, so I don't want to help my sister care for him. She and my father think I need to get over it. I think they're insensitive comments. OP is not an AH. Rather, her sister Lucy is an AH for displaying volatile behavior. OP took on the responsibility of caring for her brother and advocated for following medical advice. However, it was her sister's toxic behavior that prompted OP to step back. Therefore, you cannot label OP as an AH for prioritizing her own well-being. All of her actions are completely justified here. So, she is not an AH, and I would rate her 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. On the other hand, OP's sister is an AH, and I would rate her 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from Society Tiny 784. AITA for telling my sister she's not allowed to bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal. Every year, our family does a big Thanksgiving dinner, and we all typically bring a dish or two. My sister, who's a lovely person in every other way, insists on cooking something homemade every time. The issue? She's not a great cook. And I don't mean just not great. I mean, she has somehow managed to turn classic dishes into borderline inedible creations. For context, last Thanksgiving, she showed up with her special recipe stuffing that was over-seasoned with random spices like cinnamon and cardamom. It was dry, and the flavors were confusing and totally off for stuffing. Only one person took a small bite, and the rest went untouched. Another year, she brought a green bean casserole that had some kind of strange, chewy texture. She later admitted she used coconut milk and almond flour to experiment. No one wanted seconds of that either. This year, I'm hosting Thanksgiving. Since I'm responsible for putting it all together, I wanted to keep the menu consistent so that people could actually enjoy a cohesive meal. I thought I'd avoid drama by asking her to bring non-food items instead, like wine, soda, or even some flowers. I explained to her, very kindly I thought, that I just wanted to make things easy and streamlined, and I'd handle the main dishes. But she didn't take it well. She got offended and told me I was being controlling and shutting her out of the family gathering. She then accused me of making her feel inadequate and said that Thanksgiving is about everyone contributing, not me deciding what's acceptable. I told her that everyone appreciates her effort, but that she could contribute in other ways and still be part of it. She doubled down and said she's bringing her famous green bean casserole whether I like it or not. Now, my mom and a couple of other family members have chimed in, saying I should just let her bring whatever she wants because it's Thanksgiving, and it's the thought that counts. They're acting like I'm committing some huge offense by wanting the food to be enjoyable for everyone and not have random experimental dishes that no one will eat. But I feel like I'm just trying to keep the meal enjoyable and, frankly, edible. I don't think it's wrong to want guests to actually enjoy the food, especially since I'm putting in a lot of effort to host. Am I really being unreasonable here? AITA? Update. Alright, well, things have escalated fast. Thanks to everyone who offered advice. I tried to compromise, but it's already turning into a whole thing. And Thanksgiving is still a few weeks away. After our last conversation, my sister was being pretty cagey about what she planned to make. So I reached out to my mom, hoping she could help smooth things over. Instead, she got defensive, saying I'm overthinking and that it's just one dish. I told her I wasn't sure it was just one dish anymore, especially after hearing about my sister's grocery haul, including canned oysters and edible glitter. Then my mom let slip that my sister has been hard at work on some creative menu she's planning as her Thanksgiving surprise. Apparently, she's been telling the family group chat, which I wasn't included in by the way, that I'm being controlling and that she wants to expand everyone's palate with something truly unique. To top it off, my cousin sent me a screenshot from the group chat where my sister said she's bringing not one, but 3 dishes to Thanksgiving now. She's calling them her Thanksgiving trio experience, complete with their own place settings and little menu cards she's designing. I'm officially panicking because I have no idea what she's planning to serve, and from what I've heard, it's not remotely traditional. At this point, half the family thinks I'm overreacting, while the other half is texting me with things like, is she really bringing glittered sweet potatoes? I feel stuck. If I try to control it anymore, I'm the bad guy, but if I don't, Thanksgiving might turn into a tasting event for my sister's avant-garde cooking. So, yeah, Thanksgiving is weeks away, and it's already become a family spectacle. I don't know whether to brace myself or just preemptively order pizza. OP is not an AH for trying to maintain the standard of the Thanksgiving meal. It is clear that OP's sister is not a good cook, so her insistence on contributing her homemade meal to the Thanksgiving meal is not justifiable. She is being unreasonable and is a bit of an AH, so I would rate her 0.5 on the AH scale. On the other hand, I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on the next story from Strange Temperature 00. My sister-in-law licked my face, and now my brother is not talking to me. I am 22M, and my brother is 28M. He's been engaged to his fiancée for a few months now. She is 24. My brother's fiancée is your typical spoiled party girl, and TBH, so is my brother. In the last year or so, my brother and I have had a strained relationship. This is mostly due to differences of opinion when helping take care of our mom, who is struggling with some PTSD anxiety. She got held hostage by a man at her job, is still recovering, and not back to work yet. For some context, my brother is a very impatient and opinionated person who struggles to see things outside his own perspective. He doesn't have a good grasp on mental health. He is easily persuaded by what he reads online, gets caught up in conspiracy theories, and I noticed COVID, the pandemic, kind of exacerbated all of this. I work as a paramedic, and he's been arguing with me about thinking I know better than him ever since. I am adopted, and my bio mom was of a different ethnicity, so we don't look like brothers. When he can't think of a way to win an argument, he brings up the fact that I'm not her real son or his real brother. It wasn't always like this between us, which is sad. He's just not the same person, and I'm not sure if it's work stress, life stress, or what. I get that this post is going to be skewed by my perspective, but I'll try to be objective when it comes to the conflict. My birthday was last weekend when this happened. My brother's fiancé apparently had the idea to throw me a surprise party. Most of the people there were friends of my brother and the fiancé. Everyone was drunk. They made a bit of a show of bringing me out a cake and having me blowing out the candles. Before I did that, my brother's fiancé swiped frosting on her finger and put it on my cheek. I thought it was just her being nice and not trying to smash a piece of cake in my face. I blew out the candles, and after I did that, his fiancé grabbed my face and licked it, like from my jaw all the way up the side of my face. I have no idea why she did this. We don't even have the kind of relationship where it would be funny. My brother's face changed, his demeanor changed. He became very withdrawn and irritable. They were seen quietly fighting, and he ended up just leaving the party. I brought it up the next day to make sure he was okay, and apparently the two of them made up. It's me he has an issue with. I don't know what she told him, but it seems as if I'm the one being made out to be flirting with her, wanting her, etc. Not even remotely true. I told him to leave me out of his relationship problems. It's his partner who disrespected him and embarrassed him. He's angry at the wrong person. I refuse to apologize. Apparently, I am going to be out of the wedding unless I do. He's upset because I won't admit to my mistake. Well, I don't feel like I made one. Should I just do it for the sake of settling it? Normally, I'm willing to be the bigger person, but this is a false accusation I don't want attached to myself. AITA? Update. After trying to reach out to my brother, he finally came around and stopped ignoring me. He didn't want to talk about what happened, but was willing to put it behind us. TBH. I think talking about it would have been healthier, but I decided to let it go because he was so adamant. Then just the other day, he came to me on his own and admit that he feels unsure about his relationship and is struggling to trust his fiancée ever since the incident on my birthday. I told him there's no rush to get married and he should take time to figure out what he's feeling. I didn't try to give any particular opinion because I feel like this is something he needs to figure out for himself. Also, I genuinely don't know what's going on between them. He still took what I said the wrong way somehow, and we ended up having an argument. He thinks I'm not happy for him and don't want to see him successful starting a family. I tried to walk away at this point in the conversation because no matter what I said, it was just going to get misconstrued, but he didn't want to stop fighting. Somewhere in that, I finally learned why he's so mad at me these days. It turns out he's pissed that our mom paid for my tuition. I've been doing OT to pay her back. Clarification. If it matters, she doesn't actually want me to pay her back. It was a gift, but I'd like to pay her back slowly. My brother feels this money should have been given to him for his wedding, which I am no longer invited to. I don't really know how to fix things, but that's where we're at. OP is not an AH because he didn't ask his brother's fiancé to lick his face. OP's brother is being unreasonable by asking him for an apology. Instead, he should ask his fiancé for an explanation of her actions. OP's brother is an AH, and I would rate him 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. On the other hand, OP is clear, and I would rate him 0. Let's now jump on to the next story from Almond Dolmans. AITA. For how I responded to my stepfather? I'm an 18-year-old trans girl, and I'm in a bit of a rough spot when it comes to my stepfather. To keep a long story short, physical and emotional abuse were all part of me and my siblings' lives. For me, it was the worst from the ages of about 8, 12. I still grapple with the emotions and trauma that resulted from that time. To give an example of this, I remember a night where me, my mom, and both my brothers had to walk out in the rain because we were drunkenly kicked out by my stepdad. There were multiple other incidents, as me and my family began calling them, where he would lose his temper and do something incredibly abusive and violent, followed by donuts and fun day the next day to make up for it. It has gotten considerably better since that time, but he's still not a good person. The incidents are much more infrequent, but they still happen. Fast forward to now, like I said, I'm 18, and I finally moved out with my partner, which in itself has been a bit of an issue. I'll spare the details and get to the issue of this post. Just wanted to give some context to my situation. So I get a call from my stepdad, and he asks about some stuff that I hadn't picked up from his house yet. I didn't want to talk to him longer than I needed, so I was just agreeing to everything he was saying. I'll paraphrase because I was very stressed and don't quite remember exactly what he said, but here's the gist. He asks me this: why does it seem like we have a problem? Do we? Tell me, son. Be a man. I really didn't want to have this conversation because at this point, I was at the verge of crying because he had previously physically assaulted my brother for saying something about how he treats us in the past, and I was scared he would come to my apartment and do something similar. I said, I really don't want to have this conversation right now. I'm sorry. Then hung up. After this, he calls me 2 more times. This is the text conversation afterwards. Stepdad, you want to hang up on me and disrespect me. You're no longer welcome here ever till we fix this. Give me my house key on Friday. Me, I am uncomfortable with how fast you go from 0 to 100 like this. I didn't want to talk about that on the phone. I just want you to respect my choices the way I'm trying to respect yours. Stepdad, hanging up was I never raised my voice one time. You don't love me? Fine. You're the only one who has ever treated me the way you have. None of my children have done this. I want my house key on Friday. Turn your back on me, and I'll do the same. Me. That isn't what I meant at all. I'm sorry. Could we talk about this when things have calmed down? All I did was hang up the phone because I didn't feel comfortable. Stepdad, you could have just said that. I would have hung up. Me. Being put on the spot like that made me freeze up. I'm sorry. After this, I heard very little from him until yesterday. My mom called me and asked how I was. We had a bit of small talk. Then she asked me to text him back because he had texted me that he loves me and he wants to talk things out. I said I would, and I sent him this. This is where I might be the butthole. Hey, just texting you to let you know that I don't hate you. I just need space at the moment. You can't ban me from the house and then turn around and wonder why I haven't texted. I love you doesn't mean you're sorry. That's not how this works. I just need space. Tell everyone at home I love them. I heard nothing back for the rest of the day. I then got this from my mum this morning. I love you, sweetheart. We need to talk about your text to Dad. All he said was he loved you, and you jumped it, saying it wasn't good enough because it wasn't a sorry. I know Dad can shoot first and ask questions later, which is not cool, and it sucks being on the receiving end of it. However, he loves the out of you and would do anything for you. It hurt me to read that text you sent him. If you wanted to hurt him, you succeeded. He won't be texting or calling you unless you want him to. So, the ball is in your court, and if and when you want to talk again, things need to be resolved by the concert. There's a concert coming up where the whole family will be going. Dad and I won't be going, or you won't be going if you two aren't talking by then, because I'm not going to be around you two not talking. This is all coming from me and not him, just so that's clear. He has no clue I'm even texting you. I love the out of you, dead name. Take your break away from Dad, but don't lead him on thinking you're going to reach back out to him if you're really planning not to. Oh, and dropping your key off at your work with administration. You could have at least given it to your brother. I love you. Let me know your thoughts. This text has made me reconsider everything so far. I feel horrible. Was I the asshole? I never asked for an apology, and I realized it sounded like I was demanding one. I don't know, this could be the abused brain talking, but I feel like I overreacted massively with my response. I didn't mean to hurt him. What do you all think? OP is not the AH because her response was a reasonable reaction to her stepfather's abusive history and his attempt to manipulate her feelings. You cannot call OP an AH for setting her boundaries. She has every right to do so. Here, OP's stepfather is being an AH, and I would rate him 2 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets a 0. Let's now jump on to the last story for this video. The story is from Macaroni Salad King. AITA for leaving my 26M girlfriend alone at a party when she 25F fell asleep. Hey all, my currently ex-girlfriend and I haven't been able to see eye to eye on something that happened this past weekend, and I need some outside opinions on what I'm the for. There are at least some parts I know I am. On Saturday, some of my friends from high school were having a Halloween party that me and girlfriend were invited to. These HS friends and I kept in touch, hanging out through college, and one of the couples got married earlier this year with a joint wedding party weekend that both girlfriend and I attended. I was in the wedding, but it was more open as it was a combined bachelorette party anyway, so some SOs were invited as well. I explained that to show this is not the first time for girlfriend being around these friends. In addition to that, we have hung out casually with them a few times and went on a lake weekend with them. On to the party. Everything was going well all night. We chatted and played games in the closed garage. It was a little chilly out, but being a closed garage, it wasn't too bad. Many were out there without a coat on, and fine all night. The hostess's boyfriend also invited some of his friends, whom no one else knew. They were fine, albeit a little quiet, and to themselves. But hey, it was a party where they didn't know the majority of people. We tried including them and making them feel welcome, and all was well. After a good amount of time, the last game finished, and the unknown half of people ended up leaving. The rest of us ended up just inside the garage door chatting about past people, memories from HS, just shooting the as the night wound down. When we got inside, I realized girlfriend had not followed, so I went back to the garage, right around the corner through the door, maybe 20 feet away, and saw girlfriend had fallen asleep in a chair out in the garage looking peaceful. No biggie in my mind. I figured it wasn't too cold in the garage, and we were just wrapping up the party and chatting, so I let her continue sleeping, assuming we would be leaving fairly soon anyway. Girlfriend then texted me, "How long was I asleep in the garage?" I'm trying really hard not to be upset that I was just left. I am freezing. I replied, 30 minutes? It was intentional. Only the core group was left. We figured you passed from a few drinks and were all just chatting. Not leaving you out. Just clearly the end of the party and wrapping up. Where are you? Girlfriend. Yeah, so maybe don't leave your girlfriend in a garage. Me. And how would I know you want to be woken up? Maybe don't fall asleep at a party? I don't think it's fair to put that on me. We can talk about it tomorrow. Drunk and tired isn't the time. Girlfriend. I want to break up. I found her in the living room like she said, where she had ordered an Uber back to our town, 1 hour away. We were staying close by with my parents. Now, I realize I was harsh in my text. There had been a lot of drinking, and I had gotten frustrated, as I felt like I was getting blame I didn't deserve. That is what I believe in for. Girlfriend is very upset, and feels me leaving her in the garage in that situation shows a complete lack of caring and disrespect for her. That she woke up confused on where she was, and freezing and can't believe that I didn't wake her up to come inside. I agree I could have been more considerate and realized it might be too chilly in the garage, but in my head, this is a minor overlook, and the reaction should have been waking up and going, "Oh, I'm a bit chilly. I should move inside," not make it my responsibility to know how her body feels and adjust for her. She now regrets breaking up with me, saying she didn't really want to take it that far. Hence why I still need advice, as I am taking a couple days to process everything. I don't take someone crossing the line to breaking up as a small thing. And she also called me a psychopath the next day for not understanding her side of things, which directly attacks an insecurity I have confided in her about before. So now I come here to, hopefully, clearly lay out what happened, to hopefully get clarity on if I should have been more attentive here, or if it's not that big of a deal as I see it, to help me decide how I would like to move forward with this relationship. So, AITA? OP is an AH for leaving her girlfriend alone, asleep in the garage. His behavior shows that he is not a responsible person. OP's girlfriend frustration is completely justified. So, I would rate her 0 and OP 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale.